Through the Desert is a game that has been around for quite a while, and I believe it must be a little bit of a modern classic, at least based on the discussion of frequent discussions of it I see online and pictures of people playing it, things like that. However, it just so happens that I've never happened to play it until this new edition came out, published by All Play. All Play also produced the expansion Bazaar, which includes 4 new elements that you can mix and match and combine with the base game. And we'll talk about both the game itself, which I finally got to play some 20 years later, and also the expansion. Now, one thing about the expansion that I need to tell you right away, it comes with a nice bag. Very important element, because to set up the game you need to place these tiles here in a random fashion, and so dumping them in the bag really helps with setup of the game. The board is double-sided. Here you see the day side, and at night, I guess, at night only, a river comes out because you have another side of the board that represents the desert at night, and there is a river that will allow you to score in slightly different ways. And so the map is hex-based. You have tiles representing oases with values between 1 and 3, and again they're placed randomly on the board. You have these are water holes. These are, technically speaking, the oasis, and they have plastic game pieces there. Each player has 5 leaders or caravans, and you have a leader for each type of camel. As you can see, what identifies the owning player is the rider on top. At the beginning of the game, the players will place their leaders on the board, kind of like so, alternating doing that until all the leaders are placed on the board. You cannot place them adjacent to oases. That would be too easy. You'll see later why. And also you cannot place them adjacent to one another like so. However, leaders close to one another, well, that's already a bit stressful because the leaders can get in each other's way. So all players will place all leaders, which will be more than what you see here. This is just a simple example. And then the main game starts. In the main game, when it is your turn, you will take 2 camels, any 2 camels from the supply, and it can be 2 different ones or it can be the same, and you will add them to caravans that you control of the corresponding color. So for example, if I decide to take if I'm playing as black and I take two teal camels, I could place them here, for example, because I'm extending that caravan there. Or I could place them there. You get the idea. You have to connect them to the same type. When you cover a waterhole tile, you collect it, which is super important. That's a major way of scoring points. And so, for example, actually, as my opening, as my move, I may want to do that. So I'm collecting those 2. It's perfectly fine if your caravans touch the caravans of the players, like so. That player is standing that one. It is even also possible to touch your own caravan, but you cannot touch caravans of the same color. And so, for example, this was here. Ooh, now red may want to start building their way out of there as soon as possible, because we got a caravan, a red there and a red there, one belonging to pink, one belonging to black. And now no red camel can be placed in there because that would connect the 2 caravans, so 2 different players, and that would be so confusing. Hey, teal gets a chance there to keep increasing. When you manage to connect your caravan to an oasis, well, good for you. Boom, first I want to collect that tile there because it's neat. And also you collect one of these tokens, and that's pretty neat. And that's pretty neat. On the other side of the board, again, you have a river, and the first time one of your caravans crosses the river, then you collect one of these tiles, which means each caravan can collect only one such tile during the game. This is pretty much the general idea of the base game. Is it go with a little bit of a theme and in the desert? It has some elements of that. Also, considering the fact that if you do manage to enclose an area, you collect all of the tiles that may still be in there. And also at the end of the game, you will score 1 point for each hex that you enclose entirely. But it's not that easy to do because other players will try to stop you. You cannot enclose an area if there is another leader in there, and so there are things like that. So you continue until until the camels of one color are all gone. When one of the 5 supplies of camels is gone, then you count points. You should have, hopefully, collected victory tiles during the game. You will also, so again, score points for each hex in areas that you enclosed. Then for each type of caravan, you have a tile worth 10 victory points that goes to whoever has the largest caravan of that type. Right now, for example, Teal has a caravan of 5. No one else has anything, so they will get this tile here. So that's kind of neat, having the majority there. And the player with the highest score at the end of the game, of course, wins the game. That's how you play the base game. Now, the Bazaar expansion, as I said, adds 4 different elements. One is these markets here, the bazaars, indeed. They go on the board in areas with a star, like that. Each bazaar is made of 3 tiles worth 15, 10, and 5 points each, stacked on top of each other in that order from higher to lowest. And you can see that there are on the board printed symbols that indicate the villages. So you want to connect the bazaar with the village. If you are able with your caravan to do so, connecting the bazaar with the village space as indicated by the symbol printed on the map, then you collect the tile that is still on top, which can be worth a lot, not so much later on. Speaking of other tiles, you also have these are the 2 types of tiles that you can mix in together with the standard waterhole tiles. There's 21 of them, so you will remove 7 of each, 7 worth 1, 7 worth 2, 7 worth 3, and then you will use these ones instead of the ones that you removed. Simply put, when you collect a camel tile, by placing one of your camels on top, you take it. It's worth no points per se, but you can discard it at any point, including the turn when you get it, to place an extra camel. So there will be a turn in which you get to place 3 camels instead of 2, which in terms of timing can be very beneficial in case somebody's trying to beat you to something specific, trying to lock you out of a certain area, then you can use those. And these tiles are worth 0 points per se, but 10 points a pair. So that's an interesting other way of scoring. We also have 2 decks of cards, again, in the Bazaar expansion. One is simply new ways of scoring points at the end of the game. You shuffle these cards and you draw 2 face up at the beginning of the game during setup. And that's now you players have something to work toward for the rest of the game, because they will be adjudicated at the end of the game, and the descriptions are pretty self-explanatory. The reward is also pretty nice. The gen, that has turned out to be our favorite expansion, I should say element of the expansion. You shuffle these cards, and the first time somebody connects to an oasis, you flip the first card face up, and now the magical gen is creating a condition that everybody has to respect for as long as that gen is messing things up for us. Right now, we cannot place purple camels. When somebody else connects, or when somebody connects to another oasis or to an oasis again, then you flip another gin card, and now there is a new condition on. Now, red camels cannot be placed. Let me show you some other restrictions. Place 2 matching camels. No teal. Border space cannot be placed on. Place at least 1 red camel. Things like that. And so these will change. Once somebody connects to an oasis the first time and the first gin comes out, there will be a condition active for the rest of the game. It's simply that every time somebody connects to an oasis, the condition will change. And maybe they'll change very often, and that's what the gin element of the expansion does. Well, this was a big hit at game night. We played the basic version, both sides of the board, then all the expansions, and people just wanted to keep going. Also, it just so happened it was a novelty for all of us. I mean, that night we had like one other old-time gamer such as myself who also had happened never to play the game, plus some newer gamers. Everybody loved it. Everybody loved the simplicity of the general rules. Place 2 camels, extend caravans that you have. And then the complexity and the subtlety of all of the situations that emerge from that. The game, of course, can have a quite strong confrontational element because I'm trying to get to certain tiles before you are. I'm trying to cut you off from certain things. And yet somehow, and that was interesting, maybe with 2 players this is different, but with 4 players, everybody's doing it to everybody else all the time, and so it felt pretty impersonal. It's strictly business. Everybody will cut me off somehow, and multiple people will do it rather than a head-to-head thing. And so it felt strangely fatalistic rather than complain about, hey, why do you do that to me? But again, the strategies are pretty interesting. The general aesthetics of the game is very nice as these snaking caravans not intersect, but they start interweaving almost because the board can get pretty crowded. Interesting decisions when it comes to when to end the game because people can try to manipulate that. If I think I'm ahead, I can start placing a lot of camels of a certain type, but then people now I get the sense that no, other people are ahead, so let me start spreading out the different types now. And the expansion was also very successful. I think maybe from now on we play the basic version just when introducing another player to the experience, new players, but the gen in particular, big hit. But all the other expansions just added interesting wrinkles and angles to the general experience without altering gameplay fundamentally in any way, which is great because gameplay is really great. The biggest difference is the gen that alters the way you can place camels and also can hasten the end of the game. We have had that situation, a player trying to reach an oasis just to change the gen because otherwise the obligation of placing a certain type of camel every time would have hastened the end of the game too much. So that changes gameplay in a more significant way, but not fundamental. And the other 3 elements are basically more ways of scoring points, different ways of scoring points. Again, more of the same. When the same is good, then that is a good thing also. The production looks very nice, and so everything is very pleasant. I'm definitely happy that I finally got a chance of playing through the desert. I'm also happy that the expansions are fun and add fun to the experience. I'm even happier knowing that my group really likes it, so I think this game will see some time on the table in the future.